Everyone, hope you all are fit and fine. Dear students, today we will discuss next half of chapter number 1, How Daddy Decided What He Wanted to Be, written by Alexander Raskin. Yes, students, as we all know better, when Daddy was little, he was often asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And Daddy always had an answer ready. Students, as a child, Daddy first wanted to be a night watchman. Later on, he wanted to be an ice cream seller. Then, the job of shunter also attracted him. He wanted to become an actor, a pilot. Okay, students. Actually, Daddy kept on changing his mind so often that everybody started making fun of him. Now, students, let's read the next half of the chapter. Finally, he decided that he really wanted to be a dog. Very strange ना बेटा, बहुत strange है ना आपके लिए ये चीज. That Daddy wanted to be a dog. All that day, he ran around on all fours, barking at strangers. वो पूरा दिन बेटा गलियों में घूमता रहा and barking at strangers और strangers के ऊपर bark करता रहा. He even tried to bite an elderly lady when she wanted to pat his head. और बेटा उसने bite करने की भी कोशिश करी एक elderly lady को. Little Daddy learned how to bark very well. But now बेटा little Daddy learned how to bark very well. किस तरीके से जो है bark किया जाता है. He learned it very quickly. But he couldn't learn how to scratch behind his ear with his foot. But बेटा वो क्या चीज़ नहीं सीख पाया? How to scratch behind his ear with his foot. Though he tried very hard, but उसने बहुत ज़्यादा कोशिश की ऐसा कुछ सीखने की, but he couldn't do so. He thought that if he went outside and sat next to Rover is a kind of pet dog, we can say. ओके ही थॉट. अब डैडी ने क्या सोचा बेटा, इफ़ ही वेंट आउटसाइड कि अगर वो बाहर जाता है एंड सेट नेक्स्ट टू रोवर ही वुड लर्न मोर क्विकली एंड दैट्स एग्जैक्टली व्हाट इट डिड. और उसने बेटा ऐसा ही किया. जस्ट देन एन ऑफिसर केम वॉकिंग डाउन द स्ट्रीट. ही स्टॉप्ड एंड लुक्ड एट डैडी. ही वॉच्ड हिम फॉर अ व्हाइल एंड देन ही आस्क्ड, व्हाट आर यू डूइंग? देन डैडी रिप्लाइड, I want to be a dog. कि मैं तो एक डॉग बनना चाहता हूँ. Don't you want to remain human? अब लिटिल डैडी को उसने क्या बोला ऑफिसर ने? Don't you want to remain human? तो डैडी ने बेटा क्या रिप्लाई किया? डैडी said, I have been a human being for a long time, but now I wanted to become a dog. What sort of a human being are you? If you can't even be a dog, अब किस तरीके के इंसान हो? Is that what a human being is like? कि क्या ऐसे होते हैं human beings? Well, what is it like? Daddy asked. You think about it yourself, the officer said and walked away. अब ऑफिसर ने उसको क्या बोला डैडी को कि you think about it yourself, कि what you should do. Now, Daddy had decided to be everything else, like an ice cream vendor, a pilot, a turner, etc. It was then the Rover, their dog, fascinated him, and the way he barked and walked around on all fours fascinated Daddy, and that's why Daddy decided to be a dog. Now बेटा Daddy learned very well how to bark, कि किस तरीके से बहुत अच्छे से bark करना है. He even learned to walk on all fours, but he couldn't learn how to scratch behind his ear with his foot. उसको बेटा bark करना भी आ गया और strangers के ऊपर ठीक है bite करना भी आ गया. But students, he couldn't learn how to scratch behind his ear with his foot. So students, he even sat next to his dog Rover. Why? To learn it more quickly. But students, after that he met an officer and the officer asked him if he didn't want to remain a human, to which Daddy replied in negative. And students, this puzzled Daddy a lot. He wasn't laughing and didn't even smile. But little Daddy suddenly felt much ashamed of himself. Ashamed is better feeling guilty or we can say embarrassed. बेटा लिटिल डैडी को क्या फील होने लग गया? गिल्टी, कि मैं जो काम कर रहा हूँ वो शायद सही नहीं है. And he began to think. He thought, and the more he thought, the more ashamed he was of himself. और बेटा जितना ज़्यादा वो अपने बारे में सोचता गया कि जो वो एक्टिविटीज़ कर रहा है उसको अपने ऊपर और भी ज़्यादा गिल्टी फील होने लग गई. वो अपने ऊपर बहुत ज़्यादा उसको शर्मिंदगी फील होने लग गई. द ऑफिसर हैड नॉट एक्सप्लेन एनीथिंग टू हिम, बट he suddenly understood that he couldn't change his mind every day. But अब जो लिटिल डैडी को रियलाइज हो गया था that he couldn't change his mind every day. And what was most important, he realized that he was too small to know what he wanted to be. कि वो बहुत छोटा है ये डिसाइड करने के लिए उसको क्या बनना चाहिए. The next time he was asked the same question and he remembered the officer and said, I want to be a human being. कि मैं क्या बनना चाहता हूँ? एक good person. Then no one laughed. बेटा उसकी बात पर तब कोई भी नहीं हंसा. And little daddy understood that this was the best answer of all. और little daddy को ये चीज़ understood हो गई कि ये जो है मेरे लिए best answer है. He still thinks so. First of all, you have to be a good human being. This is most important for a pilot and a shepherd and an ice cream man. And after all, a human being doesn't really have to know how to scratch behind his ear with his food. और एक्चुअली बेटा अगर हम ह्यूमन बीइंग है तो हमें इस चीज़ को जानने की ज़रूरत ही नहीं है, नीड ही नहीं है कि किस तरीके से जो है एक डॉग जो है स्क्रैच करता है behind his ear with his food. Okay students, at last beta daddy realized that he couldn't keep on changing his career every day and he was too young to choose his career at this stage. Students, he also realized that whatever career he might choose in his life, first of all he had to learn to be a good human being. Okay students, I hope students that all of you have understood this chapter well. Now beta read it once again and try exercise of this chapter.